Hey everybody, it's Michael from Replica Airguns.com, and today I wanted to talk about those ugly orange or red tips, whatever you want to call it. You know these guys, these red tips, right? I don't know if you can see it good here. Get it to focus. These orange red tips on these guns kind of takes away from the realism, I guess. I guess that's the point, right? So that people know that they're not real guns. That's the whole point of this little orange tip. Sometimes in some places the whole gun has to be painted a bright color. Here in Canada we used to only really be allowed clear guns, and I think some of them even had orange tips back then. There's all kinds of rules regarding coloration of guns all around the world, different parts of the world. So, I can really only talk to a certain degree about here in Canada. But what I wanted to say is that you need to understand that everybody's rules and laws and regulations in different parts of the world are going to be different. So please don't assume that because of where you live, you have a rule, some sort of a law about an orange tip, that applies to everybody in the world, okay? Because quite often, I would say I get a lot of comments from people in the US, perhaps because maybe they think I'm a US citizen, accents fairly similar, a couple words a little bit different. Sometimes I say things a little different, lever, lever, that kind of stuff. Maybe a little bit of a giveaway for some of you, but I am in Canada, so our laws here in Canada for airsoft guns are different than yours in the US, okay? So I can't really say exactly, I can't tell you what your laws are. I haven't looked it up. I know even from state to state, things can be different. You have to understand also in parts of Europe and whatnot, they've got a whole bunch of other laws vastly different from ours, okay? Feet per second, energy levels, all kinds of things. Some of the people in the UK have to actually get licenses to have all black guns, right? It's kind of different. Here in Canada, here's an all black gun, right? It has a red tip. You'll see it's got a red tip on it. That's because it was imported from the US. And my understanding is that in the US, pretty much every gun for sale in the US has to be shipped with a red tip on it, okay? Now, I don't know exactly if you have to keep them on. Maybe if you keep them in your house, it's not illegal to take the red tip off, but if you're playing or if you're moving it around, or if you're going from, say, your home to the airsoft field, perhaps you have to have a red tip on the gun. I don't know exactly what your laws are in the States, but I do know that pretty much almost all retail guns in the US, airsoft guns, have these orange or red tips. Okay, now that doesn't apply to BB guns, right? So we're talking steel BB, lead pellet guns, air guns. Sometimes people call those air guns, right? There's a whole bunch of people who get BB guns, airsoft guns, air guns all mixed up. But when you're talking steel and lead ammunition, those are sort of air guns / they're considered here in Canada to be a firearm of sorts, okay? Some sort of regulated or unregulated firearm. And so getting into that a little bit more, here we have another airsoft gun here in Canada. This one wasn't distributed through the US. It came by way of direct from ASG. It's an ASG pistol, and this one doesn't have a red tip, right? Why is that? It's not clear. It doesn't have any other markings on it saying it's an airsoft gun. Well, that's because here in Canada, we don't have to have orange tips, on any of our pellet or steel BB pistols or any of our airsoft guns that meet a certain criteria. And that being that our airsoft guns can be all black, like this one here. Well, actually, I took the orange tip off. I was going to show this one. I took the orange tip off of this one. But they can be all black, right, or whatever, multicolored, as long as this just has the orange from the, that's just the design of it. It's not that it has to be orange, but this can be all black, right? No red tip. And the reason we don't need that is because this is actually considered an uncontrolled firearm here in Canada. Why is it a firearm? Well, it's been kind of classified into the category of a BB pellet gun or air gun because the feet per second is 360 plus using a 0.20 gram plastic airsoft BB, right? So because of that higher feet per second, if it was under that, so if it shot, say, 340 feet per second with a 0.20 gram plastic BB, Airsoft BB, then importing it into Canada would be difficult. So it's more of an importation thing, right? Having it in Canada, if it shoots a little bit under, isn't such a big deal, but buying it, selling it, importing it, they have to meet that criteria of 360 feet per second or higher using a 0.20 gram plastic Airsoft BB. And because that's been determined to be able to cause a serious injury. So instead of it being a toy gun, it now gets classified as a weapon of sorts, right? Something that can cause injury to a human body. Yeah, that BB isn't going to go straight into your arm, but if it shot you in the eye, it could cause a pretty serious, you could maybe even lose an eye up close with an airsoft pistol. So not a toy. This is not a toy, right? Don't get confused that airsoft guns are toys. A toy is something that you give your child, right? Would you give your child a loaded airsoft pistol? No, you wouldn't. So they're not toys, okay? Don't be confused by that. Pellet guns, airsoft guns are not toys. All right, so basically, trying to move on, talking about the whole airsoft guns being uncontrolled firearms. Again, we have this other rule called replicas, and people get that a little bit confused too. Here in Canada, we're not allowed a replica. So some people say, why are you allowed to have that gun? It's a replica. If you look at the Canadian regulations, it's a replica because it looks like a gun, all of these things, right? So it's a replica. It's not the 9mm or the 45 cal version. It must be a replica of that pistol. But because it falls into the classification of being a firearm, therefore, it's not a replica. It is a firearm, even though it's not controlled. You don't need a license or anything. It's not controlled. It's still in the classification of being a firearm. So how can it be a replica of a firearm if it is in fact a firearm? So that's how basically these guns can be all black. They don't need a red tip because they're not toys, right? Toys have red tips, that kind of thing. Okay, so nice guns. I mean, we have all these beautiful guns without having to have red tips, right? So here's another ASG. This is the Bursa, no red tip, right? As you can see, I have my Scorpion, another gun distributed through ASG, and no red tip on this gun either. Kind of nice, right? But, you know, we do occasionally have some guns that we sell in the Canada store that do have red tips on them, and you'll see this one does, because this one I believe is distributed through Umarex, through the US, comes in from the US, and so it has the red tip because they basically bring all their guns in for the US. They go through the US standards, I guess, so all the airsoft guns in the US have to have the red tips. So therefore, the airsoft guns that we get from Umarex will have red tips. This one was distributed, I believe, through Cybergun, so therefore we have a red tip on it because it comes through the US. Now sometimes I take off the red tips because I don't like them and I don't have to have them. I made a video of me taking off the red tip off this Sig Sauer P226, and it was another Cybergun distributed pistol that came through the US, so it had the red tip. I just cut it off, you know, made it look a lot nicer, obviously. You know, and the funny thing is when I actually made the video showing how I did that, and I got all these people saying, oh, you can't do that, you're going to jail, Mike, you know, you're not allowed to cut off the red tip, all these things. Those people were assuming I maybe perhaps lived in the US, right, or that I wasn't a Canadian, or who knows what. But again, respect other people's laws, right? Not everybody has the same laws as you do, and sometimes they can work for or against you. That being said, you know, in the US, you guys have a lot more lax laws when it comes to real guns than we do here in Canada. We have to have, you know, all these different licenses and levels of licenses for different types of guns. We're not allowed to conceal carry, things like that. So you know, that's, I guess some people would consider that a positive or a negative. I consider that a negative. I think my personal opinion, I don't want to get into a rant here. My personal opinion is being able to conceal carry could be a good thing. You know, the more good people that are armed out in the community is a good thing, right? Because of all the stuff that's going on these days. I think if you are trained to know how to use that gun properly, that's very, very important. I think there's a lot of people who conceal carry who are not properly trained. They wouldn't know what to do. If you're properly trained, tactically, you know exactly what to do. You know how to get that gun out in a hurry. You know what to do with it. if you are able to do that in a situation, you can save lives. That's my opinion. No, it's not those people that are concealed carrying for the purpose of protection that are hurting people or out there shooting people. Those are the people protecting people, right? It's the lunatics, and they could use whatever means they want to hurt people. It doesn't always have to be a gun. It can be a bomb, could be a knife, could be a hole, could be a car driving into a crowd of people. It could be anything, right? Anyways, that's my rant for that part. That's kind of off topic. I just wanted to put that in there. All right, thanks for watching another Replica Airguns video. Don't forget to subscribe. Check me out on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, take care.